An emergency operator got a call from an old lady by the name of Maureen. "There's someone in my kitchen," she said quietly. The operator began the standard protocol and asked her, "Ma'am, can you safely get to a secure room?" Maureen replied, "I'm in my bedroom, and it's locked, but please, you need to understand something." Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "He's been here before. Every night. Always at the same time." "Is the intruder still in the house?" the operator asked. "Yes," Maureen replied. "He's opening my refrigerator. He always does that first. Then he looks at the photos on my wall. Then he'll come upstairs." Thinking she may be having mental issues, the operator reassured her that officers were on their way and she should stay put until they arrive.
2 officers arrived at Maureen's house, and she opened the front door. Someone reported an intruder. "Was that you, ma'am?" one officer asked. "Yes, it was me," she said, trembling. "He was in the house, but he's gone now." The 2 officers drew their weapons and entered. They searched every room, upstairs, the back of the house, and the adjoining neighbor's land, but found no trace of the intruder. One officer said to the other, "He got away real fast." Just as a precaution, in case the woman had mental issues, they called for an ambulance to get her to the hospital for observation. After the ambulance left with Maureen, the officers returned to their patrol car and drove off. One officer sighed. "It's going to be one of those nights," he said, as they sped down the highway, hoping to reach their favorite diner quickly to grab a meal. As they drove, a voice from the back seat spoke. "That's right, I'm here." The officer in the driver's seat glanced over. "What did you say?" Confused, his partner responded, "I didn't say anything." Then the voice from the back seat spoke again, in a louder tone. "I'm here, not in the house." Both officers were startled, and when they turned to look behind them, they saw a ghostly figure of a man sitting in the back seat, half translucent but distinct. In their immediate shock, the driver lost control and the car veered out of their lane and into the oncoming lane, colliding with a semi-truck. The impact killed the officer in the passenger seat instantly. The driver survived but sustained head injury, briefly clinging to life in hospital. In the investigation that followed, the surviving officer later described the ghostly man as the reason for losing control of the vehicle. He described the apparition as looking human, though transparent enough to see through. He also said that the fact that it spoke was creepy enough, but being able to see through it meant it was not human, which put him into a total panic. Meanwhile, during the police accident, Maureen was in the hospital for a few days under observation. The doctor said that she had early-onset dementia and that she might have imagined the incident. However, she seemed normal otherwise and was released from hospital. Tragically, a few weeks later, a relative of Maureen called emergency when she found her dead on the kitchen floor. An autopsy revealed she died from stab wounds to her chest. This became a homicide investigation, and detectives were keen in finding the killer but had no description or witness. The case became bizarre when the surviving officer involved in the crash became interested in Maureen's murder and went searching through police photographs. To his surprise, he identified the killer from a photograph as the same man he'd seen in the back seat of the patrol car at the time of the accident. This resulted in the arrest of the man responsible, who was found to be living in an abandoned house not far from Maureen's home. Police learned that the killer knew Maureen and used to break in often by climbing through a back window and then going to her kitchen looking for food. He was a drug-addicted, homeless drifter who kept to himself and spent time in and out of prison since he was young. He told investigators that Maureen knew he had entered her house on numerous occasions but ignored him. In court, his lawyer said that he killed her in self-defense because she became violent and came at him with a knife, telling him to get out of her house. The judge said he shouldn't have been in the house in the first place and that Maureen had to live in constant fear. The judge handed him a life sentence without parole. The only evidence for the ghostly apparition that caused the police car to crash comes from the surviving officer's affidavit. The officer remains adamant that his story was absolutely true. However, his superiors thought otherwise and moved the officer away from patrol duty and placed him in a desk job. The incident became quite the topic of conversation around the local police station, especially during meal breaks. Due to the identification of Maureen's killer by the officer, he was quickly found and apprehended. Who knows how many other women he may have terrorized or killed had he not been caught. The fact that the officer claimed the killer looked like the ghost man he saw in the back seat of his patrol car led to the man's arrest, but the case will always remain a mystery.